Thinking of a player that's outside of the age curve, but would actually help take the pressure off Konate to be the man right now, would you take?
I do think he is a very, very good centre back, and I think he, if you could get him at a reasonable price, he would be a good candidate, and that's a bad shout at all.
89, 93, 86, 99, 98, 100. No, those are not this week's lotto numbers, and no, those are not the numbers from Lost. Those are, in fact, the points required for the last 6 seasons of the Premier League that has crowned the winner, the champions. And why are we talking about that? Because this podcast is all about focusing on dethroning the king. What can our teams do? One requires a miracle to dethrone and upset Man City and get back to the top of the Premier League table. This is One Kick from Glory. We're going to be discussing all things Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea this week. And I'm joined, it's a full house today. We've got Matthew, we've got Craig, we've got Markus. Hey. And we are going to have a lot of fun today. And we're going to start off with the team that are the most likely challenger to that throne if we go by tradition rather than recent seasons. And of course, we're going to start off at Merseyside, at Liverpool. So, Mark, I've been doing a lot of thinking this week about this podcast and about Man City for many reasons. One, thank you so much for Declan Rice. Greatly appreciated. Eni Aluko was right. I'll explain more a bit later. But secondly, and probably most importantly, they're bloody annoying. They are so annoying. But ultimately, our teams have got to figure out a solution to dethrone them. And you guys have gone toe-to-toe with them more than us recently, and you've kind of gotten close enough. You've beat them once, and you've been unfortunate on a few other occasions not to get there. But hopefully the Premier League will figure out 115, not points, charges, what to do about that. But looking at Liverpool now, overview going into next season, like how do you feel your chances are, and what do you think needs to be done this summer to close that gap?
Yeah, obviously last season wasn't ideal and wasn't the season we was hoping for, and obviously miles and miles behind City, so a lot needs to be done. I think some of the workings of that have begun with the signing of Alexis McAllister. I think it's clear for all to see that Liverpool probably need one or two more. Question mark still about whether or not Trent's going to go into midfield, and do Liverpool need a right back? Do Liverpool need another centre back? And are Liverpool going to replace Bobby Firmino? I think are the big questions around replacements from a squad perspective. If somebody could just kind of wander up the road to Manchester and make Brock Lesnar disappear, then that would give us a bit of a better chance. But I think we all can identify and feel strongly about that for all our clubs. But yeah, I think Liverpool need obviously still another what I would consider marquee midfield signing. So I think McAllister's good business, but he isn't a marquee signing. I think Liverpool need a marquee midfielder, and then they, like I say, determine what they're going to do with Trent, and is he going to play midfield the whole way next season? And if he is a right back, I think Verge is getting a bit older, and more easy to take on. So another centre back. But the profile is the profile. Between the ages of 21 and 24. Not overly expensive, and preferably, heading towards their prime years. And I think in that regard, the exception might be that Liverpool may potentially get up to sort of 60-65 million for a centre midfielder, and decided that Mason Mount wasn't worth that. So ball rolls on. Valverde, Szoboszlai, I think are the two names linked at the moment, and would be quite happy with either of them.
Yeah, I think that idea of midfield reinforcement is going to be key, because we've known for a while, since Gini left, you've been kind of searching for that replacement, and we can kind of say that McAllister, I think, comfortably is that person to replace him. As further to that, you're looking at Hendo, you're looking at Thiago, you're looking at Fabinho, 3 players who have been important in what you've done over the years, but three players who, for different reasons, need to be moved on. Fabinho looks like he's 86 and not the 30 or so years he should be. Thiago can never stay fit, which is just a shame, because if he could, it would be great. And then Henderson's Henderson. Like, he's a very good player, but there's a limit to what he can do. And looking at what Trent's brought in the back end of last season, what he showed for England, finally, Gareth, it's not hard, is it? Just start Trent. Wasn't hard. Was really easy, wasn't it? Gosh, it showed you what he can do. And at the end of the day, when you've got a player, as you said, Mark, on numerous occasions, when you've got a player that's that good, you find a way to make it work, right? Every other international manager does it, but somehow, some way, Mr. Waistcoat didn't want to. But it's a good talk about midfield. Obviously, you mentioned Firmino. You're not really sure whether the club would make a move to replace him in a direct way. I know you've got options up there. You've got Jota. You've got Cody Gakpo, who's probably going to be used more through the middle, I guess, which is going to be interesting to see his development there. And, of course, Darwin Núñez. I mean, thinking about those three in particular and looking at closing that gap to Manchester City, numbers-wise, how many goals are you hoping for from those three next season?
Yeah, I also think a player you missed who is going to be probably instrumental and probably start part of the front three starting regularly is Luis Diaz. Recently took the number 7 shirt. He spent a lot of last year injured. So I think Luis Diaz will be instrumental. And between him and Salah, you probably want 35 Premier League goals. And then whoever your guy in the middle is needs to be hitting 20. So if Jota starts the most of them games, if Gakpo or Darwin starts most of them games, I think the one who well, at least one of them needs to be getting 20 goals, and then if the other two can chip in and contribute when they're playing, then you've got a really good attack there with lots of potential goals and all tournaments covered. I think Gakpo was probably that Firmino replacement, but you never know whether or not they may chance their arm elsewhere. But yeah, I think all in all, Salah is going to be the main man still, and going to be the man that you expect to be really bringing it home, and then you need to see which one of the rest of them are able to step up, and then it is just a matter of settling into comfortable form, because if you can get, say for example, Gakpo and Diaz hitting a good purple patch of form, then they're going to have Jota, they're going to have Núñez, itching at their feet for a place in that squad, and I think that's important to have that type of attacking competition, so that if you do go 2 or 3 games without a goal, there's someone there ready to jump in and take your spot, and that puts the pressure on you then. Like, something that Arsenal missed last year with, Gabriel Jesus, when he was injured, and, Eddie Nketiah stepped in, Gabriel Jesus was guaranteed his spot back the minute he came back from injury, because there wasn't that type of competition there that was like, okay, if you lose your spot here, you're going to have to fight for it back, and that often makes players better. So I think that competition among Liverpool's attack is there, and I think that's a good thing for Liverpool going into the new season.
Yeah, I think that competition is going to be important, and we'll see how things develop as the season's on. We're not done with Liverpool just yet. Going to speak to the other guys and see some things they have in mind on Liverpool. And firstly, I want to talk about weaknesses from an opposition perspective. So I'm going to start with you, Matthew, on this. So obviously, we know that there's been lots of memes and jokes about Virgil, and as Mark said, he's not getting any younger, and they would want to get some players in alongside him that can, one, keep him sharp, because when you're the man and you're always going to play, your standards can drop a little bit. We've seen that as Arsenal fans over the years with some of our key players, when they kind of get a bit big B's for themselves and they sort of drop off. But when we look at that back line and the vulnerabilities that have been seen last season, from an offensive point of view, if no changes happen, like they don't bring in any other players, how do you think teams would exploit that next year going into the new season?
I think they're going to have a bit more confidence and just that losing that kind of fear factor that Virgil had when he first came on the scene. They're going to see that as an opportunist moment, and that's exactly kind of what happened the year just gone. It happened the year after they won the championship, where they finished third. Players were kind of losing that kind of fear and respect for certain players. Obviously, they admire them, at just how good they are, but it's just like it's no longer the same player that worked so hard to get to where they were that's going to be playing anymore. On both occasions where Liverpool fell off was after they won the league and after they went hell for leather, like the closest to getting the quadruple. You noticed a severe decline in how they just their defense has completely and utterly crumbled. Plus, there was a whole thing with Trent and eventually moving into the into the midfield where he was longing to be. So, if anything, moving him from there is A, given the spot to another defender they can bring in, and B, it allowed him to kind of, show the player that he's always meant to be. So it's a win-win kind of on their side. I mean, as good as Trent is, Trent has always been known to go forward defensively. He doesn't look like he likes doing it. He can do it, but he doesn't look like he likes doing it. His mind is always kind of like, it kind of reminds me of what they did with David Luiz all those years ago at Chelsea, where putting him in the midfield allowed him to just have a little bit more fun, a little bit more freedom, and allow someone else to take up in defence. But Liverpool have got to be, I think, in this window looking for a centre back. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have any recommendations because I'm too focused on what Chelsea are doing at the moment because they're just going, it's absolutely mad. But I think it's another centre back, kind of a centre back that's going to, like a mid to rising centre back that's A, going to keep him on his toes, and B, can deputise should an injury come by if he drops out of form, just to kind of put that, not necessarily the fear factor, but just to kind of stabilise the kind of the back line that they had. It was when they got Virgil in the first place, it was such a coup, and during a January transfer window as well. So to get back to that kind of like level that they have will take time, but if Virgil's looking a bit floppy, defend strikers off midfielders, attacking midfielders will be rubbing their hands.
I want to throw a question at you on the back of that then. Looking across the Premier League, because it makes it easier for us to think of players, who would you go out and buy for Liverpool to go into their team from any team within reason of budget? Let's say you're going to put £60 million on a player. Whether Liverpool will spend that much, I don't know. But let's say you'd spend £60 million on a centre-back to join that Liverpool back line to push them to the title. Who are you picking up?
You know what? Who's good? And I hate to admit how good he is. But number 6, Gabriel at Arsenal, I think he did pretty well. At 60 million does seem like a fair-ish estimate. I mean, would you take 60? Would you take 60?
100.
100?
Yeah. He's that important for us. He's our best defender. Irrespective of what people might think about Saliba, Gabriel's our best defender. £100 million, you can have him.
Markus is laughing.
Craig,
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, but on that note, like, who would you, looking across the league, and there's a lot of options to pick, who would you think would be that defender that you think, okay, Liverpool could make a bid for him, max £60 million to spend? Who's the defender you'd look at and say, okay, that's a guy they should go for?
Crystal Palace defender, Mark Gay. I think he's a top defender. I think he's going to be a very good defender. I think if he goes to Liverpool, plays Europa League football, get experience of playing against like different type of attackers, and look how well he's done at Crystal Palace. Since he's been there, he's captain sometimes as well when the main captain's not available. He sometimes like captains the team. He's young, he's English, and he's only like 24 years old, so it's quite young. So he's got a lot. He's got a big career ahead of him. I think he'll do well in Liverpool's defence next to Van Dijk or Konate. So, what do you think, Markus?
Yeah, I was going to say, Mark, who's the guy?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's good enough. But I also think that's a tough question when you look across the Premier League, because I'm not sure there's a lot of realistic options available. When you look across the Premier League, obviously Levi Colwill was on loan at Brighton last year and looks like a good player that can both play in centre back and defensive mid. And I think if I remember correctly, Chelsea turned down a £30 million bid from Brighton for him. So that's a player who would come with a level of interest from a Premier League perspective that I think has got some talent, and Chelsea are in the mood for selling players. So I guess if we was going to contribute to the Chelsea Financial Fair Play Fund, he would be the one I would go for. But I think you're probably looking abroad and elsewhere if you're if you're looking at centre backs, and there's been certain rumours of a couple in Germany and a couple in Italy as well. So I think Florentina have a centre back called Milosevic who has been linked with us, and then there's De Ligt at Bayern, and then there was the other guy who you mentioned last week. I think he's easy at Wolfsburg.
Oh yeah,
It's also linked with Tottenham.
yeah.
But yeah, I think young, 22 to 24, Gahey fits the profile. I just don't know whether or not I think he's good enough to step up. But I think that is the profile, and I think considering the fact that we're going to want a marquee centre midfielder, which I think is a more important discussion. If Liverpool come out of this window with a couple more McAllisters and don't pick up a marquee centre midfielder, then I think they can write off competing with Man City next year. I think that's much more important because I do think Konate has got the potential to be very, very good, and Van Dijk, if he gets it together, is still a good centre back pairing with Matip and Gomez being able to kind of fill in the gaps where needed. But there is no denying that Liverpool need a marquee central midfielder if they're going to go to the next level.
On that note, because I mean, thinking of Konate as a, he's very highly rated, and he does start for France over Saliba, which does baffle me sometimes. But you know what? It's the French national team. I get it and I don't get it. It's fine. But thinking of a player that's outside of the age curve, but would actually help take the pressure off Konate to be the man right now, would you take Aymeric Laporte from Man City on
I would.
35 mil deal?
Yeah, I would. I was just thinking about Laporte actually, because he's, like I say, he's 29, so he's definitely outside of the range age wise, but he's not getting the game time at Man City. But I do think he is a very, very good centre back, and I think he, if you could get him at a reasonable price, he would be a good candidate. That's a bad shout, Adol.
Okay, so what we're saying then, as a summary for Liverpool going into next season, for them to be able to win the title, we're looking for another marquee central midfielder. I know from last week's podcast we were saying Fede Valverde. There's also been you're not linked to him right now, but there's been a weird internet chat about Tchouaméni potentially being available for Real Madrid for sale, or loan, which is a very, very interesting rumor. I know you wanted him last season and missed out because of politics, the checkbook, the ink being a bit dry on the checkbook. So that could be an interesting one. But let's say we get that, there's that signing in, and then an experienced or young defender. But let's say Laporte, because I think that would actually be a statement as well for him going to Liverpool in a similar vein in like how Havertz has gone from Chelsea to Arsenal. And if it's the same kind of language used, and there's some very interesting things that Havertz said since joining Arsenal, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, because I really enjoyed those quotes. But I think that, and of course your front five or front six of options, so Nunes, Jota, Gakpo, Salah, Diaz, your front five guys, all getting around 15 to 20 goals each in the league. I think that might do it, and then Trent rocking up. Let's say he gets the assist record in the season. I think that would be enough to get you guys the title, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think, as I've said, I think the most important thing is who's that midfielder going to be, right? Because there's a lot of rumors at the moment, and there's a lot of names being thrown around, and some of them sound like they have good potential, but I don't think they fit that kind of marquee kind of sweep that we're talking about when you think of like Khephren Thuram or Manu Kone, good young unproven players who are not going to come in and be a marquee signing. The difference between they even in my eyes, they fall behind the likes of McAllister, because McAllister's Premier League proven, right? So I think when unless any other names come up, but of the names that have been rumored, Fede Valverde number 1, Dominic Szoboszlai number 2, Barella number 3. I think them 3 are all marquee signings. Any one of them 3 I would be very happy with. But as is seen, for any one of them 3, you're paying 60 million euros minimum. Some money's going to have to be spent, and Liverpool are going to have to decide who fits that profile. and who they want to spend the money on. There's talks of a minimum release clause in Szoboszlai's contract. So, you know, if Liverpool do want to trigger it, it's around 70 million euros they're saying. So, yeah, I think that is the big question for Liverpool. And if we come out of this window and Liverpool don't have a marquee central midfield signing, then there's not a chance, in my opinion, that they'll compete with Man City for the title.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the window pans out. I think it's been quite interesting looking at deals done by a lot of teams. It feels like this transfer window has been split into three. A lot of teams trying to get their deals done before June 30, so it gets included in last season's books for financials, which is quite clever. And also, we know for you guys' sake, you have to move players on because you did not achieve any of your goals for last season. But anyway, we're going to dream now that there's a possibility of you guys actually winning the title next season, even though right now it is about as likely as Santa Claus coming on August 31st and giving us all presents.
Never know.
I don't think the big man likes the heat, so
Christmas shops, they're everywhere.
They are, but I don't think the big man's going to be here. But let's talk about Chelsea. It's a very interesting time. You've signed a new young striker, or you're on the verge of signing a new young striker called Michael Jackson.
Jackson from Villarreal, yep.
I mean,
Chamon
indeed. If he can deliver, if he can be as memorable as Michael the Great, then that would be great. And obviously, there's been a lot of outgoings, and I'm going to save the Kai Havertz chat for when we get to Arsenal because I feel like it will be a much more spicier there and more appropriate. But right now, today, we know Mason Mount's on the way out. Boyhood Chelsea boy, which is a bit of a strange one from my point of view, and some of Havertz's kind of leaving comments make me feel like there's a lot more wrong in the camp than we know. That being said, this is about us having positive thoughts of the future. So, looking at your squad, as messy as it is, you got Pochettino in. What do you need to do, player-wise, to be able to say that you'll win the title over Man City in this coming season?
He's going to need to get players or work with the whole bunch of players that he'll eventually have come to the start of the season and pre-season that are all right, playing at a high intense level. That means playing with speed, playing with power, playing with pace, playing with all kinds of agility, which was all the things that we lacked for pretty much 95% of the season. After, like, say, when Tuchel left, we just had no plans necessarily of what we were doing because the manager, they didn't respect the manager. They planned for a manager that was going, and then Frank Lampard came in, which kind of disarrayed the whole kind of thing. And the players that we had just became bad literally overnight, which wasn't the case when they arrived. You know, when the likes of Sterling arrived, he had Premier Leagues. When the likes of Mudryk arrived, he had every club after him. When Mudryk arrived, they wanted him. Clubs wanted him. You wanted him.
I know I wanted him, but you said every club. I'm like, not every
club. Some clubs wanted him.
A good number of us were happy to gamble.
And we had all these other young, promising talents that had so much, like, all this potential, but they still do indeed have. I just think we need
Name
the right.
Name some.
Badashile, Madueke.
Yeah, I rate Badashile. Madueke.
Fofana.
No.
Enzo.
Fofana is not it.
Mudryk.
Enzo.
Mudryk could be.
Enzo, Mudryk, Fofana ain't it? I'm sorry, man. He's trash.
We're being positive. We're trying to be. We're trying to be. Plus the signings, I think we will have to get. First of all, our midfield is now a big gaping hole. You know, RLC is on his way. Jorginho's obviously gone. Kovacic is gone. So that whole Mount will probably be going in the next few days. So there's a nice Caicedo-shaped hole ready to be waiting if Man United can stop being greedy and just let us have him. Just please, 35 million, 36 million, 40 million. Thank you very much.
Keep going.
Number
they want 100.
40.
Yeah.
You took Havertz for 65, so it's fine. We also need, the best goalkeeper for 18 months, he's now gone, so we're going to need a goalkeeper that's going to not necessarily, I also think is give Kepa something to think about, because that's what Mendy did. He came in and for the time that he was there, he actually gave Kepa something that he needed to think about, because yes, he's been our best keeper this year, but he still wasn't as good as Mendy got to his peak at one point, because he won the Champions League, all those international trophies and AFCON in the space of a very short space of time. And we just need a more commanding keeper, someone who's good with long shots, someone who's going to be just a bit more commanding, good with their feet. Kepa's a good shot stopper. He's also good at penalties, but he just doesn't have that command that you want in the box. So one keeper, he's going to be on his way out of his club that I want to pinch before someone else does, and that's David Raya from Brentford. Always really like what he does, and I think he's up for a decent-ish price. And another keeper kind of like, because he's a character and he showed that at the World Cup. I wouldn't mind having a pick your former keeper, Emi Martinez. Got into Europe. Hey, if you can do it to us, we can do it to them. I think Aston Villa could relish that to kind of boost their squad going into Europe and competing on all different fronts. Then there's the striker situation. Lukaku was recently rejected a move to Saudi Arabia, which suggests he's not going there. What he's going to do with us, or what Pochettino can bring from here, I don't know. Because if he's going to be playing with an intense team, what's he going to add to his game? He's proven in the past that intensity is not his best strength. He likes ball to his feet sort of thing. So he's not really very good at thinking quick on his feet. So what's he going to do about that? But I also think if we're going to look realistically, I don't think there's a likelihood we're going to dethrone the champions. I mean, if we got top 4, I'll be jumping for joy. But there is one thing we can do to knock their confidence. And that's if, let's say, in 1 or 2 of the competitions, because what happened last year, at the very start of the cup competitions, they knocked us out one by one. Knocked us out the FA Cup, they knocked us out of the Carabao Cup. Now, we're not going to get them in the league. But what we can get them in is the cups domestically, because they give us more time to utilise the squad that we have to play more players. And potentially, obviously, the Carabao went to United, but the FA Cup went to them. The last 3 FA Cup finals we've taken L's every single way. Arsenal, Leicester and Liverpool. Let's get that W back in SW6 and let's pinch off that FA Cup just to kind of, let's do a domestic double just to take away that little bit of control that they like to have. But let's say our Liverpool and Arsenal can take away the Premier League and someone take away from the Champions League. I think that from our angle, that's what we can do. We can knock their confidence just a little bit, put a nice big dirty chink in the armour. That is their empire of trophies. Let's say if they're going for the country, I'm guessing is their plan for next year, we can take that off of them. If you take our player, we'll take 2 of your trophies. You take Kova, we'll take some silverware.
Well, I think what's also interesting is that you're going to have to make a 46-point swing because you finished 45 points behind Manchester. Let me say that one more time. Chelsea finished 45 points behind Manchester City. One more time, because it begs, but 45 points. So we're looking at a 46-point swing at a minimum, because Man City only won the league on 89 points, which for them is quite low, but for all of us is quite reassuring. So let's looking at the state of your squad, and obviously Lukaku probably won't be there come start this season. Aubameyang should comfortably be gone, and then there's been talks that they're trying to ship him off to Saudi Arabia, but I don't know if he's going to bite the bullet on that one. Koulibaly's obviously left. Kante's gone. Mendy's gone, or going, almost gone. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what you do in terms of like the forward line, but looking at, because let's be honest, if you want to, you'll spend whatever you need to spend to buy a player. Looking across either the league or world football, who's a striker that you would want to bring in that you think this person would get us those 25 goals minimum in the league under Pochettino, that will be the start of the catalyst to kind of fire us to the title? Who's you looking for?
It's hard to say because we've still got Nkunku coming in.
Nkunku's joining as well.
He's joining in 2 days' time. Literally, his contract starts on the 1st of July. But the last time we had a Leipzig player came over, it didn't go very, very well. As I've said before, the strikers market, it's if you want to go for something that's coming up, you have to be willing to pay the big bucks, which we will probably have to end up doing anyway. Or we go for someone a little bit more, say, established and take them on. So someone like Osimhen, I think he's been linked with Chelsea a couple of times.
200 million.
200 million. Whether we would So we could spend that, to be really honest.
You
If
can
we-
spend it, but that's
we
what it
could,
would
but
take.
that's FFP on the absolute on our backs. Like every inch we do, they'll be off on our backs. But it's the kind of thing that but it's just the market that we're in. If you want that kind of player, you have to be willing to pay above the odds. And the upshot is he's going to be there for ages if you're paying that kind of money. Because if he's going to be let go, no one's going to come near and touch him. That's the one advantage that we have, unless he wants to leave somehow. So he's probably one of a few, if only, players I think is realistically likely to come over to us paying that money. No other club I think is going to trust in us to kind of take them away with what they've done last few months, the last 6 months, where we kind of messed a few players around.
I'm going to propose a crazy option. And Craig, I want to know your opinion on this one. I know it's highly unlikely, but I feel like it could be the best solution for all parties concerned. 40 million and Lukaku for Harry Kane. Now, I know Spurs and Tottenham they are the same thing. Spurs and Chelsea do not do business. I mean, Spurs and Tottenham do not do business with each other. I'm saying the same. Why do I keep doing that? Spurs and Tottenham. So Spurs and Chelsea do not do business with each other traditionally. But what would you think about that as a swap deal option?
So if Chelsea get Harry Kane, if it happened, you have to look at him as contenders because he's a goal scorer. He's in a poor Tottenham team last season. He scored 30 odd goals. Imagine how many goals he will score in the Chelsea team with the right service, with Enzo passing the ball to him,
the right
Sterling
feeding him
the balls, and he will score an awful lot of goals there. He would definitely break Shearer's record if he went to Chelsea.
We'll
100%.
take it, or Spurs won't.
But I know Tottenham already. They're not. Daniel Levy is the hardest negotiator to deal with in world football. Him and the Napoli president are the hardest negotiators to deal with. So that will never ever happen. Let's be real. Never going to happen.
Bayern are testing the waters though.
Bayern's testing the waters.
They are testing waters. I mean, he was one person I thought who I definitely like. I would never say no to having Harry Kane at the club. I don't think anyone would say no to Harry Kane in the club. The issue is, like you said, is if he would actually be let to go. Would he let him go to a fierce rival, especially in London?
All right, Mark, what do you think about that as an option of a swap deal? Maybe chucking in one extra Chelsea player. So maybe has Ziyech left yet?
He should be.
Well, if he hasn't left, Ziyech, and for good measure, Conor Gallagher, 40 million plus and Lukaku for Harry Kane. What do you think obviously ignoring the other two players, what do you think about the option or the possibility of that as a swap deal?
Yeah, it's never going to happen. I from one relegation team, candidate to another, it seems at this stage, but
I was nice to you, Marcus.
Yeah, I have a decent team. But no, it's not going to happen, is it? If we're being totally honest, there are a bunch of strikers Chelsea could sign, and they will spend money that inevitably. I think Nkunku is a cracking signing personally, and I think he could actually fit the gap. He is a better lone striker than Havertz ever would have been in that regard. To me, he just Timo Werner seemed quite confident when he was at Leipzig too. But I think the thing about Nkunku is he seems to have a whole mix to his game: the ability to finish, the ability to pass, the ability to get himself in the right position, can play as a lone striker, can play as a number 10. I think Nkunku is a great signing. I think under Poch he'll do a great job, and I think it puts Chelsea in a situation where they can either go out and get an all-out striker, a number 9 who would be of the Harry Kane mold but isn't going to be Harry Kane, or they could play the replace Kai Havertz and have this kind of fluctuation between Nkunku and whoever that is, or this Jackson kid could be the kind of, is he going to be good enough to score 20 goals in his first league season? Probably not, but him and Nkunku between them might be able to do the job, right, to get Chelsea the goals. But look, I think it's controversial, but if I had Chelsea's checkbook and I was making a purchase, I'd sign Evan Ferguson from Brighton. I think he's quality. I think he's an out and out striker. I think, he's only getting better and better. And I think he fits the bill as a solid number 9. Now, do I think Chelsea will do it? Probably not, but he would probably be my candidate in that kind of 30 to 50 million ballpark.
Evan Ferguson would be the one. I mean, Jackson, he got 12 goals last season in the league. He got 10 in his last 11 games, which is actually quite good for the run-in. So he looks promising, but Evan Ferguson would be the truth. He is the guy that I'm glad Brighton have kept hold of. Again, that will probably cost you around that 80 to 100 million pound mark to get the conversation started with Brighton.
Because of Europe as well.
No, he signed a new contract. He signed a new contract recently, so he's definitely one for the future. And for him to trade Brighton for Chelsea, you'd have to present him with a very interesting project, because if we're looking at both teams, if we're being objectively honest, they're on the up and you guys are kind of there. You're not on the down, you're just there, flat line in the middle. When we screenshot the Premier League table from last season, we can't see you. Flat line. So but we can see Brighton and we can see Tottenham. We can't see Chelsea. You're not even in that. You're not in that first page. We have to keep scrolling, which is not acceptable for Chelsea.
Not great.
So, I guess as the final thing, obviously we know that you're saying David Raya coming in as a competition in goal would be quite good. A goal scoring striker and shifting Lukaku would be key, whether it be an Evan Ferguson, whether it be a Victor Osimhen, whether it be an unrealistic Harry Kane. But we can all dream, because he doesn't want to leave England, even though Alan Shearer would personally drive him to the airport. Mate, we all would. We would all drive him to the airport. He can sit on my back if we want. I can piggyback him to the airport and get him out of the country. But I don't think he wants to leave. And I think that creates a market. I would say that Harry Kane will probably move on from Tottenham near the end of the window. I think that's going to be a late deal if it's done, mainly because I think there's other transfers that have to take place first before it's likely to happen. And also I think if him and his brother play it smarter this time around, they can get a deal this summer. They just have to play it a lot smarter. If they want to go somewhere, and Man United have a massive gaping hole up front where they need something, and they would want a strong striker to make that push on to the next season. Man City don't need him, but you know what? I'd go buy him anyway. I would just for the sake of it. Why did you guys sign Kane? Why not? Well, you have Alvarez, and I'll just buy him anyway.
You can't, so no one else can?
So no one else can have him. I would do that. If
they
I
may
was
take
in
him
charge
on
of
a free in the summer.
Yeah,
they may
there's
take
also
him on
that.
a free next summer.
So they could wait. But if you're Kane, do you want to have one more season at Tottenham? Do you really want to probably not.
I'm saying this the past 2 years.
Yeah, I know, but we'll see. He's got 1 year left now, so he's finally at that crucial point where he can actually kind of manipulate things and get it the way he wants. But looking at your front players, so Nkunku, Sterling, maybe Pulisic, but likely he might be going. Mudryk, Madikele, and Jackson. How many goals are you expecting from them, with the viewpoint of this is going to take us to the Premier League title? With no Europe to distract us, this is what we need for the Premier League title.
That's 5 players.
5 players. How many goals are you expecting from those 5?
Collectively?
Let's go individually. Let's start with Raheem Sterling. How many goals from him?
I think he was our top scorer last year, and he got 5. So realistically, he needs to be hitting at least 15. 15
for Sterling. Craig, how many would you
15.
think Sterling need to bang next season for it to be a success?
19.
19. All right, let's go to Jackson, the new guy.
10?
10. First season's not bad.
10.
10 as well. Let's look at Mykhailo Mudryk.
He's got a lot of ground to move up, and he's had 6 months. About 17, 18.
18 goals. Some more goals from Mudryk.
6 months. 6 months.
Oh, you see, saying more goals from Mudryk than Sterling.
6 months.
Oh, okay.
15 to 18.
If he gets 10 goals next season, I'll be happy with that. I think he needs time. He needs a lot of time. And I mean 10 goals in all comps, not in just the league. I'm saying 10 goals next season will be a good start for him. Not for the money, but for him. Okay. Christian Pulisic.
10. Maybe
in the league. Okay, 10.
Maybe 8.
15, 16.
16. Christopher Nkunku, what are we saying? First season in. How many goals?
2025.
2025.
19, 20.
1920 expectation. Wow. Is that all the 5 I said? Nkunku.
You forgot the other guy, the English guy, Mekele.
Oh, Medikele, final one.
Medikele. 12, 13. Lucky 13.
Okay.
Same 12, 13.
You hearing those numbers, Mark? I'm grimacing at the expectations of Mudryk to outscore Sterling. That frightens me.
Come on, Jake.
Yeah, honestly, I think all you're hearing there is that the numbers that they're throwing out are still way too low for Chelsea to win the title, and they're not numbers that are going to get hit. So I think we can all safely assume Chelsea.
I never said we were. I never said we were. Yeah. I said a dent.
Yeah, I think we can all safely assume that if Chelsea finish top 4, it'll be a very good season. But you know, at the end of the day, if I'm in Matthew's spot and I'm in Chelsea's spot, I'm looking and I'm saying, get rid of all the players that are just pointless and let Pochettino build something over a 2 or 3 year period. He can do it. He's a great coach. Like, you know, he plays attacking football that's enjoyable. The fans will enjoy it. They'll get behind him. And you know, don't be worried about being in the top 4 this year. Be worried about being in the top 4 in 18 months, you know, 24 months, right? That I think that you know, you like you said, you do have a handful of good, talented young players that could build up a core of a good squad for the future. Mudryk is good, Enzo's good, Madikele's good, Nkunku's good, Colwell's good, you know, Badiashile good. They're good core young players. You know, but I think you know, when was the last time a team turned around a 45-point gap to win a title?
It's just been a long time.
Leicester.
Well, Leicester are an outlier, and we cannot use them as a measure for anything, except for the fact that anything is possible. So Brighton could win the league next season. It would be the most unlikely thing, but it's not the most impossible thing because they have all the pieces to do it. They just require the rest of us to absolutely capitulate at key points in the season. Not knocking Leicester's win, but that's literally what happened. So it is what it is. Yeah. And they were the second most consistent team behind Arsenal, except we choked. Anyway, so moving to Arsenal.
Speaking of Arsenal,
yeah, very much the. I have to say this before we get into the nitty gritty of what we need to do this coming season and the atmosphere around the club. Edu, Mikel, Josh, Papa Cronke, Stan, that's your name, Richard Garlick, and all the good family at Arsenal. You lot are on job this summer. I mean, I'm seeing bids, I'm seeing speculation. It's almost like, I don't know, how would I put it? It's almost like you're finally listening to your manager and what he actually wants, and you're not going for plan B anymore. You know, I mean, how many windows did we have to suffer through plan B? Wanted Vlahovic, got Gabi Jesus. Gabi Jesus was been okay for us, but how much more could Vlahovic have done? Wanted Mudryk, got Trossard. Trossard's been okay for us, but how much more would Mudryk have done in Arsenal's season with Arteta's plan? And rinse and repeat. Wanted Caicedo, got Jorginho. How much better would... You see where I'm going with this? And finally, he put his foot down and he said, my number one target for this window is Declan Rice. Now, it's not done. They're still working out the specifics on how much of that 100 rising to 105 million West Ham get up front and how soon, because they're asking for a lot. And David Sullivan, please, for the love of God, could you just be a bit more reasonable? Let the man go, please. I'm not asking for much. Just accept whatever we're accepting. Like, just accept it. We will happily give you a cut price deal for Nicolas Pepe, Nuno Tavares, Rob Holding, and Mohamed El Neni to help bolster up your squad. Whichever one you want, all 4 for £20 million, you can have it. Like, but in all seriousness, like, I've been really impressed with how we have moved this window, and also it's not over yet. So there's been some reliably placed people that have said that Arsenal are still looking to do more outside of the Havertz, which is confirmed, Rice, which is almost there. Just a few final things to go. Timber, which reports coming out of Ajax today, has said that is the fees have been agreed and they're going to get the medicals and stuff sorted out. Outside of those 3, there's more coming. That's what I've heard. I'm excited. I don't know how much more it will be and what that looks like, but I'm excited. But let's start with you, Craig. So looking at how we ended the season, 5 points behind Man City, which on reflection doesn't look so bad. In context of the season, it's a bit of a disappointment and a bit of a capitulation. In context of Arsenal for the last 4 years, it's a great end result. Us getting close, us kind of re-establishing ourselves at the big boys table again. Yeah. Although we've still got another table to get to, which the other two teams on this podcast have reached, which is Champions League glory. But that's coming. I'm not saying this coming season, but it's coming soon. But for you, looking at Arsenal, the business we've done so far, the rumours that are bubbling away, how happy are you with the directness and the purpose of which this window has been handled with?
I'm shocked. Because other windows, we wait until the last minute to buy, like, last minute shopping. Like when you go in Christmas shopping, you do last minute shopping to buy the players we want. This summer, Edu and Arteta, Mikel Arteta said, I want these players, get them. So I went them ready for pre-season. So when they're going to America, I think they're going to America for pre-season. So he wants these players for pre-season. So I think he's done a good job. I think that, like, obviously last season we finished 5 points behind Man City. To be honest with you, we were top for for almost the whole season. We were top of the league. Only in I think it was April we capitulated a little bit, we lost form at the wrong time. It can happen to any team. When Man City are good, they've done it to Liverpool, done it to us. So they were just chasing us from. They just knew that they were gonna get where they need to get to. So losing to the treble winners is not a bad thing. At the end of the day, it's not a bad thing. We know we should have won the league, but looking back now, I think Arteta would have learned a lot from last season as well, from losing the league. He would have said, you know what, I needed certain players. You can't just rely on 11 players in the squad. He needs a big squad. Plus we're playing Champions League as well. And we've got cup competitions as well to play in as well. So he has to know how to fully rotate the squad. So if we have a game on a Wednesday, Champions League, mostly Tuesday, Wednesday, most likely we're going to have games on Sunday, Monday. So he's going to have to know how to rotate. Say 1 week, for example, say Havertz plays in the Champions League and he can't play on the Sunday. You're going to have someone like a Vieira or Smith Rowe who can jump in and play that match. Or even like if a Nelson can come in and play for Saka, if Saka's tired or whatever. Then you got a Trossard can come in from Martinelli. And then you have to start using some of your young players as well, because like you got the youth who done quite well in the youth cup last season, got to the final, they lost to West Ham, but they've got some good young players coming through as well. So it would be nice to see some of them playing in the cup competition, just to give them that experience and then take it from there, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how things pan out. We've got lots of obviously the news broke today via the great David Ornstein, who's having a cracking summer. He's making Fabrizio, here we go, look like Mario, and not in a good way. But yeah, he's announced that Ethan Wanieri, who's one of our young promising players who got a rare start in the Premier League, aged I think 15 or 16, is likely to be staying on, which is very exciting, and news that a lot of fans were concerned about, because he is a very good, very promising young player. One that we weren't sure what was going to happen. There was talk of Chelsea and others looking to snoop around. But then actually what's interesting with the article is that he said that the player never wanted to leave anyway. I was never looking to leave, which shocks all of us. And I don't know why that was not communicated earlier. But it's fine. He's going to sign and stay. So we move. But looking at the moves that have been done by Arsenal, the players coming in, potentials, what do you think is the likely shift in shape and system going into next season? Because I'm very intrigued to see how Arteta is likely to utilise Rice, once confirmed, obviously, because he's not our player yet, but he's almost our player. Rice, Havertz, and potentially Timber, but I can see that Timber has probably been brought in to be a rotation option for White and Tomiyasu. But how do you think Arteta is going to utilise Rice and Havertz, especially if Thomas Partey doesn't end up leaving?
Well, he could play Partey and Rice together in that midfield with Odegaard as number 10, and then have Havertz as like a backup number 8, or he could play Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard as a midfield 3. But then Rice would have to be more of the holder, and Havertz and number 8, and
Odegaard is
number 10, yeah. it's very interesting to see how he puts that midfield together.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Rice and Partey in that midfield. I think with Partey's experience, Rice can learn a lot from Partey, and Partey can learn a lot from Rice. I know Partey's an older player, but Rice can give him that kind of that youth, that legs that Partey kind of lost last season. He got a bit leggy toward the end of the season. So if say for example Partey's injured, then we wouldn't be worried as much that Partey's injured. We have Rice that can step in, and you got Jorginho who can come off with this experience as well. So it's going to look very interesting to see what happens this summer.
Yeah,
Season coming.
It'll be interesting. I think the biggest thing Partey can learn from Declan Rice is how to stay fit throughout a whole bloody season. It's not really difficult. It's that you get paid money to work in your job. You shouldn't be off sick from your job. But Mark, I want to throw this to you because I've been having a lot of thoughts about how Arteta is going to utilise the team. Obviously, what's really interesting with Kai Havertz joining Arsenal. Now, there's a part 2 to that. I'm coming for you with this, Matthew. I'm coming for you with this one. But I'm going to just talk about part 1 and Arteta's comments on Havertz and saying how he sees him as a midfielder and he's going to use him as a midfielder, which is probably a bit of a surprise to many people. Thought we'd bring him in as potentially like a false 9 striker to add elements of what Jesus adds with something different. But what's your thoughts on the potential tactical utilisation of Havertz and Rice in an Arsenal midfield alongside Ødegaard, and what that could do in terms of our attacking output for next season?
Yeah, we've all said that Mikel Arteta is a brilliant tactician, and he understands football in a way in which many people don't, and I like that. I like that he sees something in a player that wants to be part of the club, that feels like that's his best position where he will be best utilized, and the manager sees the same thing, feels the same thing, and thinks he's worth the £65 million layout. Like I think that's a big statement from Arsenal. That they're basically saying Chelsea have done something wrong with this guy, but he's still got the potential to be one of the better players, in the league or in his position, and we were willing to put our money where our mouth is and utilize that. Like, don't get me wrong, Kai Havertz is a very talented, creative player who has looked out of confidence, and not happy, and some players are just confidence players. But like, you also look at Joe Ellington, right? Like, who was, let's just be straight, a bang average centre forward at best. Like, last season was so good in midfield that he played for Brazil at the end of the year there in their last set of internationals and scored. So like, there is something in being able to have that eye and see that. But then, on top of that, obviously Declan Rice is a massive statement. To spend £100 million on any player is a huge, huge statement for a football club to make. And for Arsenal to spend £100 million on Declan Rice is a huge statement. And maybe we'll get to this in a little bit more detail later. But the big, I guess, challenge for me in all of this is, are Arsenal spending so much money but not actually solving the big Arsenal problem, which I think in my eyes is a centre forward who can score 25 goals in a season in the Premier League at least. I don't think Jesus is that striker. I maybe worry that Arteta does think that Jesus is that striker, and that might be quite where Arsenal fall short. Is in a striker that can go and get 25 goals, no doubt. Now, look, there is some rumours still, and like Arsenal still have money to spend, and it might be that the way they do it is they punt on a sort of 30 to 50 million pound centre forward instead of the marquee 80 to 100 million pound centre forward, and hope that guy is able to bang in the goals, and kind of do it at Arsenal. But you have to say we like what we're seeing from an Arsenal perspective to move them towards strengthening for the title.
Yeah, I'm holding off on that striker talk for now because I've come prepared, and actually I think we're going to have a very good discussion on that. But I do want to talk a bit more about Kai Havertz and his move from Southwest London to North London, from the Blues where he won trophies to the Reds where he's going to win even more trophies. But he made a very interesting comment. I think, like what you said, Mark, about players and the fit, and him looking not quite as happy at Chelsea as he did at Arsenal. I think there's been a very funny picture online, which if you're watching, you can see it right here, right now, of the comparing Kai Havertz's Chelsea profile picture from last season to his picture at Arsenal, and the difference in his face muscles. I mean, I've never seen a boy smile more in all my life since he's joined Arsenal than he was when he was at Chelsea. And there's also a funny picture of his dogs on Instagram where they're all wearing Arsenal kits over the past few years, which some fans are running amok with. No, he didn't buy the kits. He clearly got them from players over the years, which you can interpret that as you wish. It might be seen as a bit rude, but it's fine. You know? It's different culture. I think it's a bit humorous that he's showing that he's part of the Arsenal family. And family is the operative word. And it's a word that he used in his announcement video in the interview about joining Arsenal. And he said that he's really excited to be part of the family. He loves the family feel in the club and he can't wait to kind of be a part of it. And he's really excited to join this winning culture and this winning mentality that he sees emanating from Arsenal and was seeing throughout last season. I think for you, Matthew, when you hear those kind of comments from a player who, let's be honest, he has been like Marmite. I did say last season, and I stand by it, that he was a bigger flop than Nicola Pepe when you count the numbers to the output, and I do stand by that, even though he did win you 3 trophies for his goals and contributions in his time at Chelsea. But I still think from an outlay perspective versus expectations, he did flop at Chelsea overall. But like, how do you feel about that perception of him seeing Arsenal as more of a family club? And what do you kind of, I don't want to say what do you hope he's going to do next season, because it might kind of be a bit like, if he does really well, you'll be bittersweet. But what are you sort of kind of viewing he might do next year at Arsenal?
Well, first of all, if a workplace says family, run away. So first of all, that's that. Look, if he wants to go, he wants to go. It was clear as day for the longest time that he was very frustrated, and that's not to say the fans weren't as well. It hasn't worked out the way that he really wanted it. And if he wants to play in midfield, he's got to get behind the queue of a lot of players that want to get into that hole. He can get there. He just wouldn't get there for a while. None of the managers were ever going to put him there. So, look, I'm going to be grown about it. He wants to be there, and we needed to shift off a big wage off the bill. So, you know what? Good luck to you. You're not going to win any trophies anytime soon. But look, it's nice to see you happy. Nice to see you going to be that big smile on your face and show the potential that it's all. But on the player side of things, it's a bit crushing. Where I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice.
Gonna be nice.
I'm going to be nice. It's crushing to see a talent as good as him, because he's still very, very young with a lot to prove. That it hasn't worked out in your club, which is always really, really upsetting. You know, he's clearly got a lot that he can show. What are you looking at me in that for?
Well, I mean, you saying he's not going to win anything for a long, long time. I'm sorry, but
I said for a year. A year?
I mean, he's more likely to win stuff at Arsenal than he will at Chelsea.
Yeah. Should I bet on it? 20 quid?
20? I'll put 50 on it.
I'm not that rich. I work in the school.
No, actually not. No. I'll do one better. We're going to do another shirt swap deal. So, Kai Havertz will win a trophy at Arsenal before any player at Chelsea wins a trophy at Arsenal. Trophy for Chelsea. So Arsenal will win silverware next season. You won't.
Right.
And when I win, you'll buy me a Kai Havertz 29 shirt. And if you win and we don't win anything and you win something, then I will buy you a Nkunku, whatever his number is, shirt.
You think?
That's a deal.
It's a deal?
Back it.
Deal.
Podcast, you've witnessed that.
Come on. Better start.
Hey, I'm 1 for 1 right now. I'll be 2 for 2 coming.
Yes. Better start looking into the
Look at Marcus's face.
better start looking in the savings. Yeah, but no, on a serious note though, like, it's sad that it's another player. Look, we've been here before with Salah. We've been here before with De Bruyne, and look what happened with both of them. Now, I know we were successful after they left, but going how you said of all those players that you had against the players you could have had, what more could we have done if we kept those players? What more? How much more powerful would we be? How much more successful would we be? How many more? What? It's always a case of what if. What more players could we be able to bring with a standard of having those 2 players, knowing where they're going to go in the future? What if? And but look, they're all. And that's my biggest fear, is that he'll go to another rival, a close rival, and do absolute bits, which he's more than capable of doing. I'm just, it's gonna be good to see him playing well and being happy. It's sad that it wasn't with you, but I'm not going to hold any blame against the club necessarily. It wasn't working. You could say we're playing him in the wrong position. You could also say that he wasn't trying enough. We'll agree to disagree. We'll end it at that. So look, 12 months from here, we'll see who's wearing the Nkunku or the Havertz shirt, I suppose. So we'll see. So good luck, but not on those games where we play Chelsea twice a year. Not too much good luck on those games, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we do play against Chelsea, we will be coming for you and we will be gunning for you. And I expect him to do something nice. I don't think he'll celebrate. Not expecting that, but I think he'll do something nice against you guys. I want to end on one little thing. Well, before we get into the real meet and drink of this conversation. But for you, Craig, looking at Kai Havertz, King Kai, as he might be called, we'll see. But how many goals and assists are you hoping for from him for it to be seen as a successful year at Arsenal? Considering that if what Arteta says is true, and we know Arteta is one to bend the truth when it suits him on more than one occasion, and he does play in that attacking 8 position, which will be where Xhaka was, as Xhaka is likely to be no longer an Arsenal player come the start of this season. But what are you expecting from him numbers-wise?
Maybe 15, 16 goals. And I think for assists, he'll get maybe 10, 11 assists.
How many goals?
16.
16 and 10, 11 assists. Okay. Mark, what are you expecting from Kai Havertz from an Arsenal perspective in the numbers?
I think if he's playing midfield, 10 goals, 10 assists would be good.
Yeah, 10 goals, 10 assists. Yeah, I'm hoping for something between that 10, because Xhaka got 7, something like 7 goals, something like that. So I'm expecting we'd want him to double Xhaka's output. So I'd say at least 14 goals in the league, and then assist wise, I'd give me 8, maybe between 8 to 12 assists next season, in the league, and I think that'll be a great.
The thing you have to remember is that that's what Odegaard did last year, and he had an absolutely top class season. So if Havertz is producing 15 goals and 8 assists, he's going to have to be performing at the level that Odegaard was performing from midfield this coming season.
And that brings me right on to the topic that I have been really excited to talk about, which is about goals. Because you've made a great point about the need for Arsenal to get a striker, that 2025 goal a season striker, to probably kind of give us that extra edge in the pursuit of the title. But I actually disagree. And I disagree because the Premier League history tells me that it might not necessarily be necessary. And so I'm going to actually go through I've picked out 4 players at random per team for the teams that have won the league. I've actually just picked out 3 particular teams and then Arsenal from last season. So I've started off with Leicester, 16-17 season. They had the 4 players I'm looking at is Vardy, Mahrez, Okazaki, and Mark Albrighton. So I wanted to have strikers and a midfielder. And so Vardy played 36 games, got 24 goals and 6 assists, all stats from the PremierLeague.com. So if they're incorrect, sue them, not me. Mahrez played 37 games, got 17 goals, 11 assists. Okazaki, 36 games, 5 goals, no assists. And Albrighton in 38 games, got 2 goals, 6 assists. It's quite nice. But, only Vardy is the only one who got 20 goals. But, if people actually combine the goal assists, goal contributions and combine them both, but I'm keeping them separate for argument's sake. Liverpool's 19-20 success. Firmino, 38 games, 9 goals, 8 assists. Mane, 35 games, 18 goals, 7 assists. Salah, 34, 19 goals, 10 assists. Wijnaldum, 37, 4 goals, 0 assists. Of course, Man City from this past season, they ended up with Haaland on 35 games, 36 goals, 8 assists. Jack Grealish, 28 games, 5 goals, 7 assists. Pathetic. Mahrez, 30 games, 5 goals, 10 assists. And De Bruyne, 32 games, 7 goals, 16 assists. And in comparison for Arsenal from last season, Jesus, 26 goals, 26 games, 11 goals, 6 assists. Saka, 38 games, 14 goals, 11 assists. Odegaard, 37 games, 15 goals, 7 assists. Martinelli, 36 appearances, 15 goals, 5 assists. And I chucked in Nketiah just for good measure, and he played 30 games and got 4 goals and 1 assist, all Premier League stats for each of the respective teams. Now, for me on the debate in terms of like the striker thing, I look at it and I think, and that's probably where Arteta's thinking as well. It's very difficult to get a 20-plus goal a season striker without breaking the bank. But if you can get enough players getting 10, 12, 13 goals a season, like if you think about our attacking spread of options, if Smith Rowe can come in and chip in with 10 goals next season, if Fabio Vieira can chip in with about 8 to 10 goals next season, if Kai Havertz can get those 14 goals, which I'm hoping for, if Odegaard can push his numbers up to get to between 18 to 20, because he can do it, so that will be what I'll be hoping for from him next season. If Saka can go from 14 to 18 to 20 goals next season, and then if Martinelli can do the same, and then if Jesus can be bothered to get 15 goals, like that would be a really good spread. And I think that would put us in the ballpark of what Liverpool had in 1920 in terms of like goal spread amongst the front players. And I think that might be enough to do it. Plus you got your Rices coming in with maybe chipping in with 5 goals for his new club. But I want to throw it to you, Matthew, first, then Craig, then I'll come back to you, Mark, on that point. What do you think in terms of like in that race for the title? Do you think having that marquee number 9, that bagsman, that 25 plus goal season striker, is that essential? Now, obviously, I got to add this in as a quick little caveat. I am ignoring the fact that Erling Haaland has now ruined the league for all of us and probably will require some recalculation on these numbers. But putting the freak of nature to one side, do you think that is required now, a 25 goal a season striker?
Not necessarily, because the game's moved on from then, and now you got goals coming, especially now in the system where you got wing backs, so you can play the back three. It's like having 7 attackers, because the goals literally come from mainly on the channels, occasionally through the middle, never really from the back. So the whole point of having a striker that bags you 25 plus goals, essentially to win the title, it's nice to have, but I would much rather have a set amount of players, let's say 6 or 7 players that can chip in, like you said, 10 goals apiece. That's more than enough to take up into a title track. If that striker get injured, if your main striker gets injured and you're chucking one that's chucking in maybe 15, you're still having that good spread of 10 all around. If you look back at when, I'll throw it back a little bit further now. Look at 04-05 when Chelsea won. Drogba was not the top scoring striker in the league. He barely broke even his first couple of seasons. But we had goals coming from Robin. We had goals coming from Lampard. Yes, we had goals coming from Drogba. But we also had goals coming from our defence. Other teams, like Man United. Yes, you had Rooney, you had Ronaldo, you had Tevez, you had Nani, you had Anderson. Even go to the likes of Arsenal, if it wasn't Henry, it was, Pires, it was Fabregas, it was Lundberg, it was Bergkamp.
The only thing I'll say with the Arsenal and Man United example, both squads had players who got 20 plus goals. That's the only thing I'd say that kind of...
but they weren't number 9s. Strictly. They could play there.
I mean, Omri was a striker. Rooney played through the middle. Tevez played through the middle. Ronaldo got in the middle and got goals.
But they kind of think. But remember, the likes of when we started on side. But yeah, not anymore. Especially now how games have moved on. Look at Harry Kane this year. He bagged 30 and they finished out of Europe. Even likes of Ivan Toney and Brentford, he was their top scorer with nearly 20 goals, and they got they had a terrific season, finishing in the top half of the table. It's the way the game goes now. It's kind of narrow-minded to require to have that one striker, because there's no point if he gets injured. There's no point if he's out of form. You're going to need other players kind of building up the slack to take on the strain of scoring more goals. I think it was a goal-scoring record this season, mainly because of him, the freak. But yeah, it's nice to have, but the way the games move forward, I don't think it's essential to have. So, not necessarily, I think.
Right?
I feel like nowadays, the way our teams play now, the striker's job is not the same like it was back in the day. Nowadays, most teams, like the goals get spread around. Like at Arsenal last season, all the goals are spread around. So Odegaard was our top goal scorer last season. He scored all the goals, majority of the goals. Saka as well scored the majority of the goals. Martinelli scored the majority of the goals as well. So I feel like you don't really need to have a successful number 9 now to score 25, 30 goals now.
But the question is it needed to win the league? considering who we're up against and that freak of nature called Erling Haaland, is it needed to win the league? So that's what the question is. It's not is it needed, it's is it needed to win the league in this country? And while you ponder that, Mark, what's your counter to my position?
Facts are facts that every season that you named, pretty much, each one of them teams had a player that scored 20 goals. 19 is basically 20. Liverpool had 2 that scored 20.
19 is 19. It's not 20. Listen.
19 is basically 20, and Liverpool had 2 that scored 19. So as far as I view it, you don't need a number 9. You need an attacking player who is able to score 25 goals. Like that's what you need. Like along with another bunch of players that can contribute 15 to 20. But the facts are facts. You know, at the end of the day, even the Vardy season that you named, he scored 24 goals. Like, you know, in the Leicester season, there's one exception, and that was when Man City won the title, not this year, but last year. And their top scorer was Kevin De Bruyne with 15 goals. And they didn't have an out-and-out striker, and they spread the goals among their team. And they are fundamentally one of the best teams to ever play in England. And like Gundogan got 15, and De Bruyne got 15, and there was a mix. But even the year before that, when Liverpool had the 2 who got 19 and 18 and won the league title, Sterling scored 20 goals, and Man City didn't win the league title. I think that in this modern day market where Man City have a striker that's going to get 30 goals halfway through the season, you need a striker or an attacking player that can contribute and compete in the same way, if not 2. Now, the question for Arsenal is, are Martinelli and Saka ready to step up and add 7 more goals each to their output to be able to be them 2 players that take Arsenal beyond? Because is someone really going to sit here and tell me Haaland's getting less than 30 goals next year? He's not. Like, unless he gets injured, Erling Haaland is scoring at least 30 goals in the Premier League again next year. Like, fact. So if you want to compete with Man City, you need to be able to, at the very least, be getting close to or as many goals as they're getting. And to compensate for Haaland's 36, you need 2 players that are getting 20 goals, just alone to compensate for Haaland. So I think this season, Martinelli and Saka would be the balancing act of Erling Haaland as they were last year, but Gabriel Jesus fell short because he's just not good enough. And the Arsenal need a third in that mix, along with because I think Odegaard's season was exceptional, but I think Havertz takes some of the pressure off of Odegaard from a creative perspective. That between them, if they get 20 goals in the league, they're going to contribute in the games that they play. Odegaard, I don't know if he can have as good a season personally. Maybe he can, but I'm not sure. But I think that Havertz thinking takes a level of the pressure off. But I still think even if we say, you know, Saka gets up to 20, Martinelli gets up to 20. I still think Arsenal need another player that can also say, look, I'm going to bang between 15 and 17 in that attack. And I don't think that's Jesus, personally. Again, could be wrong, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's up for debate, and we'll see. I do think Saka and Martinelli will both get close to 20 goals in the league next season. I think the way how they both ended the season, well, obviously, Martinelli got clamped by Caicedo, who, if he wants to really apologise, should come and wear red and white next season. That would be the best apology you could give all of us. But I think both of them will push a bit harder to get that. I know Saka had an injury going into the end of the season, so his numbers kind of dropped off a little bit, and because he was tracking to get that last year, but kind of fell off a little bit. As for Jesus, well, he's got a lot to prove. I think he proved us a lot wrong in a lot of things he could do, from his all-round contribution, his dribbling, his directness, his skill, his flair. The numbers need to follow, because 11 goals, considering he was injured for a good chunk of it, is not bad. But some of the chances he missed, you know, he can do better. Odegaard's the same. 15 league goals look quite good, but some of the chances that he missed, some really gilt-edged chances, and some of the finishes he did, considering the goals he scored, he could have easily got 20 goals last season. And I mean easily, which, considering what he did last year, is in the previous season, that, you know, the 15 he got this year was a surprise. But when you look at some of those chances missed, you think you could have got 20 goals comfortably. and really rivaled your countryman for player of the season, even though it was always going to go to the Brock Lesnar of football. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how they all go. And like I said, there's still this rumor of Arsenal might have more business in the fire. There's been no talk about any strikers linked to Arsenal, which is weird. The closest to that, who's not a striker but is Moussa Diaby as a wide player, which if he was to come into Arsenal would, one, give Saka a rotation option, but two, could mean that you might try Martinelli centrally, which is what a lot of fans want. And maybe he might be that 20 goal a season player and Jesus can play out on the wing, because we ended last season very interestingly. And I'll say this to kind of like wrap up for today, but one of the things I found quite interesting with Arsenal's 11 in the back couple of games in the season, when we had Partey playing right back, we had, at times in the game, we had Jesus drifting out to the right wing, and it was Martinelli or Saka that was the most central player. And then obviously Xhaka rediscovered his license to run forward and was getting further into the box. So potentially next season we could start a game with a Martinelli centre forward, Jesus off the left, with Havertz, Ødegaard and Declan Rice as your three, with Partey right back, Gabriel, Saliba and White as your other defensive players. And then in possession, it turns into a back three with Partey and Rice next to each other, and Ødegaard and Havertz pushed right up the pitch. And then with Saka, Martinelli and Jesus all interchanging positions, which could become really interesting if they pull it off. Because they did that last game of the season. We did see those combinations working. And I'm wondering if that's what Arteta's thinking. And that might leave Arsenal open to making a kind of deal for someone like Caicedo to sort of move Partey on and have someone who could comfortably drift into those right-back areas. Might explain why we're looking at Timber as a potential player that could sit in, play right back and invert that side rather than just inverting from Zinchenko's side. So lots of possibilities, but you're right, Mark. I think the key thing is going to be the goals, and Jesus needs to get more than 11 goals next season. He did win me my little wager, so I'm happy about that. He did outscore Darwin Núñez, but I don't think that's going to be the case this coming season. Núñez will be firing properly, and Jesus, if you want to win again for us and for everyone concerned, you might need to hit 20, mate, because Núñez is going to hit at least 15 next season, and I'm going to say that now on record. He's going to get at least 15 goals next season, possibly a lot more, but he's going to get at least 15 in the league. That's my prediction for Núñez.
At this stage, you mentioned that there's not been too many striker links, but there is one quite prevalent link that's coming out of Italy and Italian newspapers at the moment, that Arsenal are actually in pole position to potentially sign Rasmus Højlund from Atlanta.
I call him Baby Haaland.
Yeah, who is very closely linked to Haaland. Maybe a little too much considering the fact that he only scored 9 goals last season in the league. But I think, in terms of a potential striker, could be an interesting option.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, here's how I see it working for all parties concerned. Yeah, Brentford, 6 month loan for Nketiah, no problem. Balogun, you can stay as third choice until January, at which point you can then go on to West Ham for the rest of the season. Everyone's happy. Rasmus comes in, we buy him, happy days. Gabriel Jesus, you got 1 year to get 20 goals. No pressure. But if you don't get 20 goals, then we need to upgrade from you, because, this is Arsenal. We're used to having big gunners up front. Even Adebayor, for all his faults, he had a 31 goal season. Shocked all of us. Then he left. But hey, he did it. Van Persie did it. We know what the greats before them did, but that's the standard you're aiming to go for. We've discussed Chelsea enough. It's going to be a tough order, but you've got a good manager who's going to be eager to repair his reputation, because the PSG saga would not have gone well for Pochettino, so that's quite interesting. Liverpool, you know what to do. You've shaken the cobwebs off of last season. You've kind of gotten this disappointment. Not your owners have found their checkbook. I think Todd Bowley might have hacked into their accounts. That's why he couldn't spend much money last season. But either way, we're here now. And as for Arsenal, the deals we're making, it clearly shows that we are prepared to stay where we are and push on. And if we do finish second again next season, I would hope that it's a 2-point gap at most. And then the following year we can push on for the league. But me personally, I'm going to say this on record, I think Arsenal win the league next season. I said it last season and I'm saying it now. I think we'll win the league next season because I just think there's something special that we're building. I will confirm that belief after pre-season because I want to see what I'm thinking Arteta's thinking in terms of the approach with the players. I like that Smith Rowe's been bagging in goals for the under-21s, and that's important for him to get his fitness, his confidence up, and also his price tag up because you never know. But I'm quite intrigued to see what Arteta's going to do. I think Man City will come back stronger. But also, Mark, you'll like this. Pep's assistant has not agreed to sign a new contract and he's moving on to another club. His long-term assistant, which makes everyone believe that Pep Guardiola will leave at the end of his contract this coming season. So, guys, we've got one more year of him, potentially one more year. So, if we can knock him out this year and beat him to the title, then everything will be restored in England all over again. And then we can have a proper, like, good old-fashioned Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, maybe Chelsea, fighting for the title again, and Man City can just drift off into obscurity back where they belong. That's it for me. It's a good podcast. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think. Do you think Arsenal have a chance to win the league this season? Do you think Liverpool will bounce back stronger? Will Chelsea surprise everyone? And I mean everyone, including Todd Bowley, and win the league? Or will it just be same old for them? And by that, I mean not 12th, I mean like 4th or 5th. And lastly, who do you think is going to pick up a surprise signing this summer of a striker? And will Harry Kane swap white for red or blue or white or red? Decipher those clubs, and we'll see you all next time.
Peace.
Peace.